There are some 2 million known and identified species of life on Earth. Some biologists estimate that there may be multiplied millions more that we have yet to discover. Most evolutionists agree that the chimpanzee is the most intelligent life on the planet next to humans. Evolutionists are giddy with their comparisons between chimps and humans, from the chimp's ability to perform rudimentary communication to his use of weapons like throwing rocks to defend himself. But the real difference between a human and a chimp is like the difference that exists between a chimp and a rock. Evolutionists conveniently seem to ignore that chimps and humans are several universes apart in many, many ways. Do we look similar? Yes, slightly similar. Do we share much of the same DNA structure? Yes, we do. Some scientists say as much as 98% the same, which would explain why we look slightly similar. But that is about where the similarities end. This number of 98% DNA similarity is often given as a proof of evolution through a common ancestor. We argue, however, that given the universe of difference between a chimp and a human, it is inexplicably amazing through the argument of evolution that just a 2% difference in DNA structure could produce such a superior race of species to its next most intelligent supposed kin, both supposedly deriving from a common ancestor. It makes much more scientific sense to at least consider the possibility that the reason a chimp and a man have such similarity in DNA structure is that we had a common creator and designer using common building blocks. Not only does a chimp not even come close to a human in many indisputable observable ways, nothing out of the millions and millions of species on the earth, nothing comes within several universes of proximity to the human being. Following are just a few examples to ponder. Human beings are the only species to display a complex consciousness, generating thoughts, ideas, words, literature, capable of abstract reasoning, introspection, and extremely advanced and complex problem solving. We are the only species to advance almost limitless technology. What the human mind can conceive, it can invent and produce and use. Not so with any other of the multiplied millions of species of living things. We are the only species to build complex societies with laws and courts, rules and regulations. We are the only species to build prisons to separate certain members of our society, or to build complex buildings for shelter, sealed together, and then arrange those buildings into communities and sprawling cities. We are the only species to transport and mobilize through artificial means. The only species to invent technologies to travel under the water and through the air and into space. The only species to display morals and moral judgments, holding other society members accountable to these moral judgments. The only species to use complex language forms, spoken, written, and sign language. We are the only species to produce written generational knowledge specifically for generational transference. The only species to build libraries, write books, invent computers in which to store our generational knowledge. The only species to produce and wear clothing. The only species to discover and use mathematical principles unendingly within our lives. The only species to manufacture the advanced use of tools, tool crafting and building. The only species to actively seek to control and manipulate the environment around us. We are the only species out of millions and millions and millions to build temples and altars and to worship, both individually and to gather ourselves together corporately. The only species to build fires and to construct artificial fire-making devices. The only species to farm and grow our food and then purposely provide it to others of our own species, as well as to provide food for many other species of life, purposely. We are the only species to cook our food, or to produce medicines from the environment around us and medically provide for our own bodies and health. We are the only species to perform surgery on members of our own species and other species. We are the only species to purposely care for all the other species of the world in a concerted effort. We are the only species to purposely build weapons of war and to assemble ourselves in military units to fight against entire societies of the same species. And this list can go on, but you see the point. There is nothing on the planet, and as far as we know, in the entire universe, that even remotely compares with the human being. Nothing. Nothing comes within a universe of closeness. The chimp, the dog, the dolphin, and the whale are beautiful, amazing creatures, but they don't even remotely come close to the intelligence and the world-changing potential that a 2-year-old human child does. It is as though everything else is here for us, and it is much more reasonable to think that than to think that we are somehow accidentally here for everything else, or that through some non-purposed process we evolved from common ancestors along with much of everything else. It just doesn't make common sense, much less real scientific sense. No, the scientific answer, from information that we can observe, record, test, retest, and falsify, the scientific answer that makes the most scientific sense is that humans may be the result of intelligent design. An intelligent designer specifically and purposely elevated us, a universe above every other living species in the world, so that we and we alone would have dominion over the earth. For that is the way it is, whether the evolutionist likes it or not. But this is just what the Bible, the Word of God, has been telling us for over 3,000 years. And scientifically, commonsensically, it makes sense. But doesn't the theory that man evolved from a common ancestor with the chimp make any sense at all? No, scientifically speaking, not so much. The absolute uniqueness of man. What an embarrassing conundrum for the evolutionist.